All right, let me just confirm that you guys are able to hear me, okay? If you'll give me a green check mark. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we will be talking about effective practices for course communication, and I do have some poll questions. So let's get started with the first question. What communication tools do you most frequently use in your courses? And Sarah, if you can change the poll to a multiple choice type. And I can help out with that if need be. Just a second. All right, fabulous. And so when you're ready, go ahead and use your polling tool to respond. So A is course messages, course email, depending on whether or not you're using Angel or perhaps WebCT. B is email, C, text messages, D, more than one of the above, or something else. If you have another option, if you'll choose E, and then if you will enter what that is into the chat window. And we'll give just a couple of more seconds. All right, and Sarah, can you go ahead and publish the results or push them to the screen? All right, so it looks like D is the winner with A as a close second. So it appears that we're doing a really good job of using a variety of tools. Okay, let's clear that poll and let's move to a second question. Do you have a communications plan or communication guidelines for your students in your course or your courses? And this is just a yes or no, so if you will, Sarah will change the poll type, and if you'll give a green check mark for yes and enter in an X for no. So it looks like we're close to having everybody respond, and Sarah, if you will go ahead and, yeah. So it's really almost neck and neck, and I see some people entered their responses inside of the chat window. So it may in fact be that we're really, exactly neck and neck there in terms of, yes, some have a communication plan and others don't. And we'll talk about that as we take a look at all of the results, or as I share information with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. I'm actually going to present my slides from my desktop, so give me just a moment to transition. All right, so I'm going to begin our time today together just reviewing a particular study. This is, in fact, it's called ECAR, Students in IT Study 2012. Basically, this study is sponsored by EDUCAUSE, and they do an annual study of students and information technology, and they've been doing this now for quite some time. If you would like to read the full study, they have a really nice infographic and other information. I've provided a link there for you on the screen. Essentially, I've just given you a snippet of information regarding the methodology of the presentation of the study. Essentially, it was voluntary. It was an opportunistic sample. They did offer I believe it was an Amazon gift card. Your chances of winning were 1 in I think several hundred, but it was just to motivate students to participate. There were quite a few institutions, almost 200 institutions represented, and you can see well over 100,000 student responses. And the sample in particular is looking at 10,000 US-based respondents. And if you read the report, what you'll be able to see is that if international responses were included, those are denoted, and so that you can make a clear delineation of of where the responses are coming from and what type of data and how that might be interpreted or impacted based on institutional cultures, so on and so forth. The broad thematic messages essentially were these: blending modalities and using technology to engage learners. And there is really a lot of information within this one category. I'm going to just go through the highlights and then I'll touch on each category a little bit more deeply. The second area was really focused on students. The first being that students are really bringing their own technology. They are not expecting institutions to provide technology for them. There is a lot of really good information inside of the study with regards to whether students are preferring laptops or tablets, whether or not they're using mobile devices and even which types. I won't get into lots of details there, but I want you to realize how rich the information is inside of the report if you choose to read it. There's also a lot of information. Students have very strong and very positive perceptions about how technology is being used and how it benefits them. And this is a really interesting area to me. Some really interesting data that can be drawn out in terms of student preferences, what tools that they say are really meaningful and helpful to them versus those that even I have had. I've made my own guesses and have made assumptions about what I thought students had the most desire for in terms of technology that they wish that their instructors would utilize. And it was interesting to see how in some ways I was accurate, in other ways I wasn't. And again, we'll dive into that in just a second. And then finally, the last point that I'll touch on is that students are very selective about communication modes, and they have some things to say in terms of what they think is the best way for their instructors to reach out to them. So before I dive into that, because that's where we'll spend the bulk of our time together, I just want to share with you a couple of facts about each one of these thematic messages. So if we look back at the first bullet there in terms of blending modalities and using technology, 70% of students actually said that they learn most in a blended learning environment. Online-only course experiences have increased over 100% from 2008 to 2012. So students are saying that they learn the most in a blended learning environment, yet online enrollments are continuing to grow. If you were to look at some of the Sloan Consortium research, you would see that over the past year, overall in college higher ed enrollments declined, although less than 1%. What was interesting to see that the online enrollments continued to grow even though the rate this past year was not as great as the rates that have been in previous years. Additionally, 67% of students say that technology helps them feel more connected to what's going on at an institution. And depending on what your background is as an educator and where your own areas of research interests lie, there is a lot of literature. There's been a lot of research dedicated, I would say, over the past 20 to 30 years about student engagement and the impact that instructors can have in terms of making sure that students have a positive experience and that student-instructor interactions can actually improve a student's likelihood to persist year over year and then finally to graduate and earn a degree. And the last point that I want to make about the first bullet is that 57% of the students wish that their instructors would use more open education resources. Again, not the focus of what we're going to talk about today with regards to communication, but just some interesting facts that I thought I would share in hopes that you would go and read this study for yourself. When we're looking at the second bullet with regards to students bringing their own technology, 86% of students actually own a laptop. And in 2012, more students own a handheld mobile device. So 15% of students say they own a tablet, 62% a smartphone, and 12% an e-reader. And the reason that I draw these facts out is that as we continue to move forward, we will be pushed to as educators, our students are going to push us to really make sure that when we're designing our courses that we're being mindful of the way that those courses would be consumed on a handheld mobile device. So I think increasingly students are going to be needing not just access, but interactive access and the capability to be able to really review course content and to participate in the course with their instructors and with their peers through a mobile device. And I think that will really change some of the approaches that we take in course design. The second bullet there under students, in terms of their strong and positive perceptions about technology, this is where things increased in terms of interest for me. 75% of students said that technology helps them achieve their academic outcomes. And in terms of listing their top 3 things that they more or less could not live without in terms of being successful in higher education, they listed laptop, printer, and flash drive. And I think that was surprising to me in some ways because I expected students to be asking for things that were much more grand. And I think it was a good reminder, and it helped me to be a little bit more humble in terms of students really are still desiring in many ways that we provide them with just really good yet clean, crisp, and concise content. And so in many ways, today's students at least are still relying on more traditional types of technology to help them be successful. 75% of students do say that technology helps prepare them for their future educational plans, and 63% say it helps them prepare for the workforce. So just a little bit of background as we now move forward and focus on communication. All right. So in terms of students' preferences and connecting with them, here are some facts that I wanted to share with you. So students say that we should connect with them via face-to-face interactions. 53% of students said that that's the way they want to communicate. Now what I want to point out there is that in this particular study, they did not draw out what students actually mean by face-to-face interactions. Do they mean actual physical face-to-face interactions, or are they okay with virtual face-to-face interactions, say in a Skype or in a Collaborate type of session that you all and I are participating in today? Another thing that I thought was very interesting was students say they really wish that faculty would just utilize the functionality in their learning management system. 53%, so this tied with face-to-face interactions, and this increased over 21% over the past year. When you go in and you review the study and you look deeply in that area, what I thought was very interesting is that even students who have taken online courses, 8 out of 10 of them say that they still want the face-to-face interactions, and when they identified an LMS-specific tool, discussion boards came up as being one of the most important tools that they wished all of their instructors would utilize. And that struck me in that I think sometimes I had the perception that, again, students were wanting to use really cutting-edge types of technology, and that perhaps they were wanting instructors to utilize Second Life or simulations or game-based learning. And all of those things are wonderful and they all have their place. But students, again, are really being more simplistic and hoping that regardless of whether or not the class is blended, traditional in a brick-and-mortar format, or it's fully online, they are increasingly asking and expecting faculty to use the learning management system. Email is also, although passive, it was highly documentable way to connect with their instructors. Email actually topped this list in 2011, but in the 2011 study, they did not ask about students' preferences with regards to face-to-face interactions. So I know oftentimes I have even read research, you may as well have yourself, read research that says that students don't check their email, but they're telling us here that they do, and they wish that their faculty would utilize email communications with them. Some 45% of students said that that was a preference. Additionally, text messaging was popular, and that's probably not surprising to you. If you have teen-aged children in your home, or if you allow for your own children to have a mobile device, you probably see them. There's some very interesting data. Blackboard even has some data that we can share with you if you're interested in terms of text messaging and how pervasive it is among just our population here in the United States. So this one also saw a huge increase, some 27% over the past year. Topping the list at number 5 was IM, so instant messaging and online chatting. 37% of students said that they preferred that method, and that also saw a 28% increase over the past year. And then the last thing that I wanted to include, so the number 6 in terms of their list of communication preferences was social studying sites. So 36% of students chose that, and that also increased some 20%. Just a few other notes that I wanted to mention here. I mentioned to you the discussion board earlier, so actually 3 in 5 students say that they wish their instructors would provide an online forum for communicating with their peers. And then 57% of students want to keep their personal and academic lives separate. And I'm going to bring that out as I demo in just a couple of moments. And the reason that that is important is because some instructors they know that their students are using social media sites, and they maybe at even the suggestion of some of their students have chosen to utilize Facebook for academic purposes. But an overwhelming number of students are saying that they wish these types of features were included in a way that they did not have to mix their personal and their academic lives. And frankly, faculty are telling us the exact same thing. So some recommendations based on the study. As you're moving forward, even though the technology helps students feel more connected, don't discount the importance of face-to-face interactions. And you might even query your own students to determine, do they still need to drop by your office and have some physical face time with you? Or is utilizing some type of virtual tool going to help them feel like they can be more successful and have that connection with you and with your institution? So when you're thinking about planning your course, consider multiple communication channels between your institution and your students, between yourself and your students, because what you saw from the last screen, I hope, was that students want options. Also, students want to connect with one another and with you through social networks, but they don't want to mix academic and social lives. So I'm going to show you some tools that you may or may not already be familiar with inside of Blackboard that will help you to achieve this without creating a lot of additional work for you, because you already have enough responsibilities and requirements as faculty, and these things need to be simple for you to take advantage of. And then finally, use email and use your learning management system for formal communication with your students. Experiment with text messaging if you're not already using it. And I'm going to show you some options for that, because I realize that some of you may not wish to provide your personal mobile number to your students, and you may not want them texting you. So we have some options to assist with that. And then also experiment with IM and online chatting. Don't focus your efforts on using social networks like LinkedIn or Facebook, or even telephone conversations for interacting with your students, because if you read the study, you'll be able to really glean for yourself that that is not what students feel like is going to help them be most successful. So now I want to move to a demo, and just to set expectations, my plan is to demo for you messages, and some of you may know messages as course mail. I want to review the send email feature with you. I want to go over the one-way text option that is inside of Blackboard, as well as the text-to-voice notifications options. I want to cover with you the send two-way SMS building block that's powered by Blackboard Connect and give you the details about that. I want to cover My Blackboard Messages and My Blackboard Spaces, which are some of our newest features. And then I want to just touch on discussion forums, because there are two or three updates in discussion forums that you may not know about, and so I want to make sure that you walk away today knowing and having the information to help you be empowered as a faculty member. And then finally, I'm not going to demo, but I will be able to answer questions, and I can just let you know that Blackboard does have an instant messaging tool that is part of the Blackboard Collaborate suite of functionality. So with that said, I'm going to move to demo, and if you have questions as I'm demoing, Scott is standing ready to be able to assist with questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move over, and I have logged in here as an instructor, and before I start showing you some of the specific tools, oftentimes in my work with faculty will tell me that they don't even see these tools in their course. So I want to make sure that you know where the tools are in the event that your system administrator has turned the default setting to off, or and then you have to turn it on, or if it may be always off and perhaps you need to go to your support at your institution and ask for these tools if you don't see them available to you in your course. So if you'll go to your control panel, in the customization menu, you will see the tool availability option. So if you don't see, for example, messages or send email or some of these others, you might come to your tool availability screen and just look for these tools. They are listed in alphabetical order. And so if I scroll down, I'll just show you course messages. And so here is course messages, and you can see that it is selected. If you can't find course messages in your course, again, make sure that you come here and you turn this on. Same thing for most of the other tools that we'll talk about today. So now I'm going to go ahead and just hop in and show you this tool. So I'm going to go in as a student and access my course. And I have added, for convenience, this is where your communications plan, where you really need to start thinking about how do you want your students to communicate with you, because if you don't, you could potentially miss communication that they send you. They could be trying to utilize a tool that you've not made available to them, or you could have too many communications options turned on and easily become overwhelmed in trying to manage the various communication modes for all of your courses. So you'll need to make decisions about what you think may work best for you depending on the type of course, the type of students, how often you're going to be interacting with them, so on and so forth. So you can see here in my course menu, I have included a course messages menu option. And this is just to make it convenient for my students. Some instructors will choose to have a tools menu, and from the tools screen, you can access course messages, but I don't want my students utilizing all of those tools. In fact, I've turned some of them off, and so I'm including the tools that I want them to have access to right here on the screen. If I click on course messages, I'm able to see both an inbox and a sent. So this is very similar in structure to email, and you can see here that I have one unread message, and in my outbox, if you will, I have sent one message. So when I open my inbox, you'll notice that it has the status as unread. I have ability to change the status to read or unread. Depending on my preferences, I can see the subject, and then I have the option again to open, delete, mark read, unread, and then I have the date and time stamp for when this message was sent. So I'll go ahead and open the message, and as it opens, you can see that it looks a lot like an email, but I want to make sure that I stress here that the container for these messages is the course. You come into the course and you use the message tool to draft your message, and then you come into the course to check the messages. Faculty that I've worked with that utilize this tool tell me that they choose this sometimes over the email option because it helps them keep their communications for each course separate. Many faculty tell me that they're already overwhelmed with the volume of email that they receive from their colleagues and from their institution, and that they prefer to keep student communications out of their institutional or personal email inboxes and keep it here instead. And so if that is your choice, you'll need to make sure that you communicate that clearly to your students so that they don't become frustrated and that they're sending you emails that you may not be receiving or you're not reading, or you're sending them messages inside of the course and they don't know to go and look for that communication there. So again, you can see here you can see in reverse chronological order, the student actually began this conversation to the professor, and then you can see here where the professor has responded. If the student in this situation wanted to reply, it's just as simple as coming here and doing reply to sender. The recipient is already chosen, but if the student wanted to carbon copy or blind carbon copy someone, they can. You will see here instructors in the course are designated as such, and then if they wanted to, for whatever reason, select their peers, they can do a selection one at a time, or they may hold down their control on a Windows machine or their command key on a Mac, and they may select multiple students. You also have the option in terms of being able to shift and then select a series of users in between your initial and final click. And then once you make your selection, you would simply use this button to move those individuals over into your recipients area. Then finally here, in terms of composing your message, you have the ability to specify a subject, and then you have our nice content editor for being able to draft communication here. In addition, I want to point out, I want to make sure, in case you are not familiar with this content editor, the tools here across the bottom. So you have the ability to record from webcam. So you could even have a video conversation that you're exchanging using the messaging tool. So you could record a video for your students and push it through this message, and they could respond to you via video. You have the ability to include files, images, other types of embedded media, as well as mashups. Lots of improvements have been done to the math editor. You can copy and paste in information without using formatting from Microsoft Word and other programs. You have the ability to toggle to HTML or see the CSS code that's behind this. So this content editor really improves the functionality of the messaging tool over the messaging tool that was in previous versions of Blackboard that did not have this really nice content editor inside of it. That is essentially all that I have to say about the Course Messages tool. So I'm going to move on and show you the Send Email tool. And you'll also notice here in my course, again, I'm accessing the course as a student. The instructor included an email link in the course menu to make it easy for the students to access that functionality. Now, just to explain, in case any of you are not really familiar with this tool, this is simply an interface that you can use from within the course to send email to individuals who are members of your course. So this is not going to allow you to send email to individuals who are not participants in this course. And you don't check email here. So this is going to be powered, the underlying, under the hood, if you will. So the engine behind this is configured by your system administrator at your school, and it is relying in most instances on whatever school-sanctioned email software or application you're using. So this may be using Outlook. It could go to your school's Outlook email address. Perhaps your school has a partnership with Gmail and you're using Gmail. This just lets you send email to those accounts without having to leave the course and go log in to whatever your email platform is. But no record is kept here in terms of will this show me that I've sent something? You'll notice that if I go to select users, as I'm drafting my email, and this is really the case with any of these, my sender's email address is not specified. Let me change to an instructor because I'm pretty sure that hers is set up correctly. So here as the instructor, if I go in and do single select users, and really any of the options that you see there, they're essentially just filters. I can select my recipients. I'm shown any individuals who have invalid email addresses. And this could be caused from a variety of reasons. Maybe depending on how your institution integrates your student information system with Blackboard, the student may have entered in an incorrect email address in their student information system profile. So at least you're receiving a warning here that lets you know that these students are not going to receive this email because their email address is invalid. Now, of course, I'm operating off of a demo server. You are much less likely to have any invalid emails, but if you do, at least you're empowered such that you can go to your information technology staff or whomever it is at your institution that's appropriate to let them know that these students' email addresses are not correct in your system of record. So essentially you specify your subject, you specify your message, and then you have here an indication that lets you know that you as the sender will receive a copy of this email, and that serves as your record that you actually sent the communication, because I understand the importance of making sure that you have records in terms of just keeping up with whom you have contacted and when you did so. You can also request a return receipt, and then of course you may attach files, and you do have, again, the same content editor. I'll cancel out of this screen, and just for a moment, make sure that you understand that as a convenience, you have the ability to just send to everyone in the course. You could also send messages based on all of your groups. If you're fortunate enough to have teaching assistants, you have a filter for that. This is all of your student users, or if you're co-teaching and maybe multiple instructors are in your course, this is an easy way to email all of your colleagues who are co-teaching with you. Observer users are most typical for K-12 institutions, but if your institution has a specific use for observer users, you do have that option here. And then finally, you do have, of course, the option for being able to select single or specific individual users, groups, as well as observers. All right, so now I'm going to go back over as a student, and I'm going to go to the My Institution page. My reason is that I want to make sure that you are familiar with the notifications dashboard. And even though I'm going to be showing you the functionality that's available here to you in terms of specifying your notifications preferences, you as the instructor have these exact same notification options in your view of Blackboard. So let's go to Edit Notification Options, and you'll see here that as a student, I can do a bulk edit of all of the courses that I'm taking so that I don't have to go in and do select my settings for each individual course, although some students, depending on the level of activity in each course, may want to do that. And if you want to edit your courses individually, even as an instructor, you can choose to do that. The user that I'm logged in as right now is not a member of any organizations, for those of you who may use the community engagement module, but you also have the ability for being able to edit your notification preferences that may be coming out of your organizations in which you are a member. So as I click on courses I'm taking, I can again select all of my courses, or from this screen I could choose to just select a single course. And then I have here my notification destination. So as a student, and your institution may have different preferences, and they may have turned on or off some of these functionalities. So if you don't see something, again, this is where it's going to be important for you to talk to whoever administers your system at your institution if this functionality is important to you and you're unable to discover it. But your students do have an option of being able to specify a number for being able to receive text messages and text-to-voice messages. And then you can see here, these are system-generated notifications. So if you as an instructor post a new announcement that you've set to be available, the student can choose to come in and receive a notification of that announcement in a couple of different ways. They can choose to receive it on the dashboard, which was the screen where I started out from, and that's where I'll navigate in the end to let you know where the notifications dashboard is. They can also choose to receive a notification on their via mobile, via email, and then here are the SMS and the text-to-voice options. Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to go over all of these different notifications, and when you go to this screen as an instructor, you will have some different notifications that are appropriate for you in terms of student interactions with you and steps that you may need to take inside of the course. The message that I really want to communicate here is that if you believe that your students are really represented in the findings from the ECAR study, and they want to be able to really personalize the communications that they're receiving, make sure that you inform them that this option is available, that they can choose to have these options. There is no cost associated to your institution for students being able to come here and select, for example, receiving these notifications via SMS or text to voice. This is free. There is no charge to your institution for you and your students to be able to receive these notifications. Now I want to go back, as I told you, and let me show you that notifications dashboard one more time. Again, if you want to receive notifications on the dashboard, you can see here in my What's New module where I have various notifications that I have received, and I have a number indicator there that lets me know. And again, all of these notifications could have also been received via email, or I could have chosen to receive some type of notification on my mobile device. And for some students, this will be very important to them because this will help them to make sure that they are staying on top of the things that are going on inside of their course. Another thing that I want to share with you is a it's a two-way text option that is available for instructors. The building block that you would need is the building block. It's called Blackboard Connect for Learn. It is a send two-way SMS building block. It is free. Your institution would need to purchase, I don't remember the exact terminology, let's just call them packages of messages. And in my opinion, they are very inexpensive. You can get details. We can send you, if you're interested, you can let us know in the chat window if you would like specific cost information in terms of how many text messages can be purchased, at what cost. I'm not going to get into the cost today, but your institution has the ability to purchase those packages of text messages, and then they can allocate them across both academic and student services portions of your institution. And you have the ability then to send a text message, a two-way text message from inside of your course. So if I come here back to my control panel and I go to Course Tools, I'm able to scroll down and I see here the Send Two-Way SMS option. All right, so I'm inside of my course. I've went to the control panel and I've accessed my Send Two-Way SMS option, and let's start by sending a text message to the students inside of my course. So I can go to Compose. I have the option here to send the text to everybody who has specified a number where they can receive a message, and I would also have the ability, if I wanted to, I could choose to browse. And so here again, I can choose to check all and go with everyone that's in my course that has specified a number, or I can just choose a couple of individuals. So I will just choose, I hate to potentially harass any of my colleagues. I'll just choose myself. That way I can make sure I'm not disrupting anyone. So I can save and return. And then I have the option of being able to select a pre-created text message script from this drop-down menu. And you have the ability to go in and you can see here from this script option, you can build out some scripts. So maybe I want to send a text that I'm going to hold an exam review, or I want to ask students, would you guys like an exam review? Or maybe I just want to text them and say, your grades are posted. I'm really proud of you guys. You did a great job on this particular assignment. Or maybe it's the beginning of the semester and I want to send out a text message to encourage them to review the syllabus prior to class. Maybe I'm going to give them a pop quiz on the syllabus to test how familiar they are with my syllabus and my expectations for the course. So I could choose a script, but then of course I can add to that script as I see appropriate. You do want to keep in mind that you should keep your text messages short so you can see that you have the number of characters utilized, and we do have a maximum number of characters that you can use. And then you can send it now, or you can choose to schedule your message to go out at some future point. And this is also convenient for you. If any of you are active on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you may be using something like some type of deck or suite that allows you to schedule your post and be able to push out communication so that it is creating at least the perception that you are active. Your students don't necessarily know that you've scheduled this. They may think that you have just thought of them as an individual and you've sent them a text message to just encourage them or remind them to do something for the course. Once you're ready, all you do is click submit and your message is sent right away. So then at that point, you're able to go to your inbox and you can see if anyone has replied. So they can text you back and they can respond and let you know that they received it or if they have any questions, and you check your messages here. So it keeps you from having to utilize your own personal mobile device to be able to have these two-way text exchanges with your students. As you would expect, you also have an outbox where you can again see what text messages you have sent. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you have the place where you can come and you can see the scripts that you have already created. You can click on them to edit them. So I can come here and edit the script, or I can go back and I can create a new script to utilize for my course. So it's a powerful tool. Your system administrator has some additional functionality that is provided to them in terms of managing keywords, so that if you want to be able to sort your received messages based on keywords, or you can create filters, it just helps you manage messages that you're receiving. When we were on the compose screen, you also see here that depending on how your institution might choose to allocate message credits, you can see what your credit balance was and then how many messages you actually have remaining available to you. And so if this is something that you think you would utilize, and I hope that we've already proven the case just based off of the brief amount of data that I shared with you from the EDUCAL study, that students like this form of communication. And in my opinion, the benefit for you is that it keeps you from using your own mobile device, having to give out your mobile number, having to have your students share their mobile numbers with you. You're able to use this right here inside of your course. You have this nice interface for being able to manage sending and receiving of your messages, and it's right here where you're already doing all of your other forms of communication with your students. Now again, back to the communications plan. If you do think that this is something that you would use for communicating with your students, you might want to let them know and give them a heads up, because some students may not have provided a mobile number in the Blackboard interface. Maybe they don't know that they can. Just communicate that with them so that they have the option of being able to do so that they can make sure that they are receiving these messages from you. All right, let's go ahead and move back to my students view, and I want to now show you the My Blackboard messages. Now this is a relatively new tool. It is here contained inside of the My Blackboard tool set. This menu that you're seeing me open is called the Global Navigation menu. This menu is available to you with access to all of your My Blackboard tools, regardless of where you are inside of Blackboard. And you'll notice that the student has a visual indicator here, so I have a little badge with a number 1, and that lets me know that there's something inside of Blackboard that needs my attention. And then immediately my attention is directed here to messages, where I have an indicator to let me know that I have a new message. Now, just to make sure you understand, these messages are not contained inside of the course the way that your course messages are. Depending on preferences that you and your students choose, when you set up your profile, and let's go ahead and take a look at the profile just in case you're not terribly familiar with this functionality. Your students and you have the ability to set up a really nice profile. There's a lot of research that shows just the benefits of having something really nice like this. Also helps create presence for both you and your students, creates a sense of belonging. And this is a really nice tool in terms of social learning. Although I won't spend time today really focusing on the social learning aspects of some of the My Blackboard tools, you do have this nice profile for being able to tell a little bit about yourself, what you're studying, and then you have your privacy settings. And I'm going to cover with you today messages and spaces, and I'm pointing out these privacy options to you. I'm going to zoom in just a bit in case my resolution is a little small for you. By default, your privacy setting is set to private, and therefore only individuals in your courses, organizations, and spaces can find you, and only people that find you can message you. A little bit of extra context in case you're not, again, totally familiar with this functionality is this is really built on all of the feedback that is supported by the research that EDUCAUSE did in terms of students wishing that there was a Facebook, Twitter-like type of tool that they could use that was really not requiring them to use their personal Facebook pages, their personal Twitter accounts, to be able to have that same type of functionality. So what we have done is we have recreated our own social learning experience inside of Blackboard. And for those people who want to take advantage of the social learning functionality, then they can choose to open up their privacy settings to allow maybe perhaps individuals in their institution to be able to find them and message them. You can also choose to follow people, similar to what you might friend individuals in Facebook, but rather than friending them, you're just following them. And then you may even choose, if you really understand and are comfortable with the benefits of social learning, you may choose to open this up to all Blackboard users. And at this point, this includes Blackboard users at other schools. So if I'm taking classes at the University of Alabama, or if I'm teaching classes at the University of Alabama and I have colleagues at other institutions across the Southeast, we could use the tools here inside of Blackboard to communicate with one another, to perhaps set up a space where we could collaborate with one another. And so opting into this greater level of openness allows me to really collaborate with individuals and to discover individuals with whom I may have similar academic interests. Again, being provided because even in our own research with some 600 students and 600 faculty at about 640 institutions, they told us overwhelmingly that they would love to have this type of functionality inside of Blackboard without having to use Facebook or Twitter because they don't want to mix their academic and their personal lives. So again, if I cancel from this screen and I come back here into my messages, what has happened here is this particular student has chosen the privacy setting of private, so she is able to send and receive messages with other individuals with whom she shares a common academic context. So again, spaces, courses, and organizations. And you can see here where the student contacted the instructor asking if the student could come by for office hours to have some additional help this week. So you can see the full exchange between the student. When the student hovers over the person's name, they're able to see about the individual. They can choose to view their profile. I'll let you see the profile. It's a really, again, nice profile. If this professor had shared any thoughts about varieties of topics, that would appear here on the person's profile wall. But again, the messages tool is nice for being able to communicate with individuals beyond my courses, not contained inside of the course. It's contained based on those privacy settings. Composition of the message is really simple, so I simply start typing someone's name, and it automatically provides me with a selection of individuals based on their privacy settings that I can contact. So Brad actually happens to be a peer of this student in one of her courses, and so she's able here to message Brad and then type out the message that she wants to send him. So I'll just type in a brief message. And then you're able to see here that she sent a message to Brad. The preview of the message is here. And then as this student and Brad communicate, the full context of the conversation will be represented here on the right-hand side of the page. Another useful tool that is part of the My Blackboard collection of tools is Spaces. And you can see here that this student is a member or has chosen to join. So you can choose to join depending on privacy settings. You can come here and do a search for all spaces. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to search on some of my demo spaces. You can enter in a keyword and then see what spaces are available, and you can learn more about those spaces by hovering over each of them and reading the description of the space. You can see that this one is a Blackboard K-12 City School District. It's a shared interest space. So if you had an interest in flipped classroom best practices, you might choose to request to join the space, and then the space administrator would grant you access, and you would have a way to be able to collaborate with users, again, based on your own privacy settings, who are also members of this space. So it's a great way to network and to learn more about one another. And again, the benefit of keeping this out of a Facebook group, for example, is that Facebook groups are not going to, they're just not going to be focused with an academic mindset. And so you're going to get a lot of other things that are distracting to both you and your students, whereas these spaces have been designed to allow people to come and have a place to have, students can set up a study group. So this student that I'm logged in as could choose to come here and create, say for example, a capstone project team. And so maybe she's in a capstone course and she wants to invite the people that her instructor has assigned her to as the team in the course, and she wants to invite them to join this space, and they're going to use this space to collaborate about the work that they need to do in the course. The space owner has, again, the ability to open the space up to all Blackboard users. They can protect it and force people to either ask to join or to receive an invitation, or you can choose to make your space private, and it won't appear to individuals when they do a search. Users would have to be invited to join the space to be able to see it. Again, you have the ability to customize the name of your space, to add in a picture that represents your space, and then to categorize it so that others can find it depending on the privacy options that you utilize. And then last of all, you could give a description of your space. For time's sake, I look like I have about 1 minute, and so finally what I want to go and do is just very quickly highlight two couple of important changes to discussion boards. So if I go to my biology course and I access my discussions, I have chosen to include an introductions forum because students say even just the simple benefit of being able to collaborate with their peers inside of a course via discussion board is important to them. So as a student, I can come here to introductions to begin to do the requirement, and you can see here that my instructor has chosen to make this a post-first forum. This is a great pedagogical benefit because this is requiring your students, even in an informal forum like this, to do their own original posts without trying to copy or mimic the posts that have already been done by their students. The second thing that I want to note is that even when I choose to create my thread, The forum description remains on the screen. So I am able to see right here what my instructor has asked of me so that I can make sure I'm meeting requirements in my discussion post. And then I also want to highlight you have the nice content editor for being able to record a video, so you can have a video discussion board if you wanted. And then of course you have the options for including mashups, which include YouTubes, Flickr, SlideShare, so on and so forth, as well as the options for including other media. So that is essentially all of the things that I had hoped to present to you today. I am very grateful for your time. I do want to just draw your attention as we wrap to the faculty success page, as well as the educator cohort. And then if you're not familiar with the Blackboard quick hit videos, you can learn a lot more about the discussion board features, the social learning features, and other things that I covered and then things that I did not by viewing our quick hit videos. And you can get to those by going to tinyurl.com/bbquickhits. And there are a lot of 1 to 2 minute videos where you can learn about all of the functionality that is available to you today inside of Blackboard. So Sarah, I will turn it back over to you.
Misty, thank you so much for such an informational session. I think you've inspired all of us to utilize new tools, so thank you. Scott's been keeping up with the questions. If anyone has anything that they feel like they'd like Misty to discuss a little further, please type in the chat right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. Thank you all again, for those of you that have to leave, for attending today. And please feel free, I'm about to type my email in the chat. Just email me directly with any follow-up questions, and I will forward it on to the appropriate person.